We are here for Theta Talks. This week, we are talking about something pretty interesting today. We're going to be talking about guilt. We're going to be talking about things to do with our ancestors and family. So, some really great topics today.
So it's an interesting topic to explore being back home.
Yes. So I know this was the topic that you picked. So tell
Yeah.
us a little. I was just about to introduce it, but tell us from your perspective why this was something you wanted us to talk about today. And let's start with that.
Yeah, so this is something that comes up quite a bit in a lot of my sessions and in personal situations where
Mhm.
I see a lot of my clients or, that feeling of obligation, that feeling that you're not living your life for yourself, but for other people,
Okay.
and I think that that's really affecting a lot of Asians or South Asians or people who really are brought up with this kind of culture. So I think it's very relevant to a lot of people. And so I want to highlight it because, we're living with this type of guilt or this type of burden, right? And I think the actual feeling is of burden, and we shouldn't have to. And so I wanted to explore this and maybe be able to lighten the load of our audience,
Okay.
So that's why I
So,
chose this.
so what we're talking today is guilt, right? What else are we talking? We're talking about some like silent rules, family
Mm,
roles. So
yeah.
tell me a little bit more about the topic itself.
So what I see, I mean, based on what I see, is that feeling of I can say this in the Philippines, being here, that this long, that a lot of my clients have this feeling of obligation towards their parents, towards their siblings, that they have to bring them through school, that they have to be the one that supports them. So this is kind of expected. It's like, oh, because you're the eldest, you have to do this. Or because you're the boy, you have to be the one to do this.
So is that a
So,
wrong thing, right? Because I just had, a session the other day also with one of my students who was talking about this whole eldest child syndrome, which is
yeah,
really big among, Filipinos and Filipino culture is
yeah, yeah,
the sense of like, if I'm the eldest child, I'm responsible for everybody else. And you never
yeah,
quite shed that baggage, right? You never quite
yeah,
let go of that role. You pretty much, even after you are living your own life and you're no longer responsible, let's say for your siblings or other people, you still feel like the whole, the world rests on your shoulders. So it's something
yeah,
you never quite escape is this idea
yeah.
of having to bear a heavy sense of responsibility, right?
So I think that the idea behind it should come out of love versus obligation, right? And I think that's key in this type of dynamic. We do it because we're expected to. We do it because we're obligated to. We do it because we're burdened to do it
Right.
versus the moment you kind of shift that perspective of I'm choosing to and I'm doing it out of love.
But okay, I get it. I get it from a theta perspective that that's kind of some of the work we
Mm,
help them do. But if
yeah.
you think about it logically, right?
Mm,
If you're earning money, you're working a full-time job, and you can't even really
make
move
ends meet.
forward in your
Yeah.
own
Yeah.
life
Yeah.
because you have to constantly think about
Mm,
supporting other people. Like one of my clients was talking about, she wants to go back to school. She wants to invest in
mm.
her education. She wants to do all these things. She has dreams for herself, but she doesn't want to spend any of her savings because she needs it in case one of her family members back home
Get
gets
sick.
sick,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So it's like her life is stuck
Mm,
because, and it happened before. So
yeah.
she's coming from the fear. It happened before where someone was sick. At that time, she wasn't working, family member was sick, and it was very stressful because there was nobody to help her at that time. And so
Mm,
she kind of made this vow to herself is that I will never let that happen again. So she
mm,
lives in constant fear of having to, have some money there in case someone gets sick.
Security, yeah,
Security. So
safety, yeah.
ultimately, like, her life is on hold, her dreams are on hold. She's depressed because
Mm.
she doesn't love what she's doing. So many negative things kind of showed up in her life because she's not really living her life for herself. She's living it for
And
other people.
because she's doing this, obviously there's a sense of resentment, right?
Deep down, it's very
Deep
deep down,
down,
but yes.
it's like, oh, I can't live my life for me, right? I have to keep this safety net or, keep this for other people or everybody else. Um, and so when you tend to do that, then it's not coming from the right space, right? It's coming from fear, like you mentioned. It's coming from what if something goes wrong
Yeah.
versus maybe you end up enabling those people that you're helping. I
But
see a lot
then
of that happen.
But a lot of people don't feel comfortable, and understandably so, to not carry that responsibility, right? Like, even like my
Yeah.
client, right, who wants to invest in her education, wants to do something with her life. The idea of not being there for her family is not something she's comfortable with. And I completely understand that. So how do you handle that kind of a situation where, ultimately their intentions are always good,
Yeah.
right? The
Yeah.
intentions are good to help your family, to be there for them. But ultimately, like, you end up feeling like your whole life is stuck because you're constantly trying to help other people and you're not helping yourself. So what's the solution?
I think boundaries are very important, right? In this type of case, in terms of this is how much I can contribute, or this is how much I feel that it's comfortable for me. Beyond that, it gets, this resentment builds. It feels like, being taken advantage of. These are the feelings that I see my clients having, that I can't live my life. So a lot of the times I have to also allow them to understand that you need necessary boundaries. And I spoke about enabling because I see people who are dependent, and if they didn't have income from you, then they would have to work. But because they're so comfortable getting that from you, then they don't end up, right? So I think boundaries are good. And also understanding, are you the one enabling them to not take that step to be independent on their own?
And I think this is a key point, right, Maisha, that I'm glad you brought up, is when we take care of other people, we don't give them a chance to learn to
And
take
take,
care of themselves,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
We don't give them a chance to figure things out. So it's like, you know, one of my nannies, right? My nanny for my son, she likes to feed him.
Mm,
And, I tell her, he's not a kid, he's not a baby. And if you
mm,
feed
mm.
him, he's not going to learn to be eating on his own. And I'm talking about a story that was many, many
Yeah.
years ago when today my
Mm,
kids,
mm, mm,
they eat on, but she used to love doing it because she
mm.
loves him,
Yes.
right? She
Yeah.
didn't do it because he can't eat on his own. She
Yeah.
would do it because she loves him so much that
Mm,
she enjoys feeding him.
yeah.
And the same thing when my mom comes and visits, she wants to feed the kids because,
Mm.
it's been decades since she's had to feed a
Done that.
child and she doesn't have her grandkids around. So she likes to do these things for them. But what ends up happening is then they get really lazy and they're like, oh, I
Yeah.
just want to be fed. And they stop eating on their own, or they
Yeah.
start taking a really long time, they get distracted. So I noticed, like, when we didn't allow, if we didn't give them the space to be independent, then they would become super dependent.
Yeah.
And in many cases it would not allow them to develop the way they needed to develop, right?
And I
They
think
need
it's
to be.
more so here because of the OFW type of community and culture. A lot of people, they end up going abroad and they have the money and then they end up. So it's something that is very prevalent in the Philippines for sure.
Yeah, and and culturally and maybe even in terms of having this religious influence also is,
Mm,
the idea of helping your family, right? Which is
yeah.
important. I just think I just think personally that the best way to help your family is to become successful yourself and to fulfill your own dreams, because now you have the ability to give to them from your overflow, right? But
Right.
if you're coming from a place where you're already in the state of having not enough, then you have to give whatever you have to the people you love. Then that's what builds the resentment and the
Right.
feeling of just like, you know, you can't really do anything for yourself. You feel sometimes like, demotivated, or you
Yeah.
feel
And just going
resentful or
back to your
angry.
client, if she went through with, getting more education or, going further in her um, education, then she could maybe apply for better paying jobs and get even more abundance and versus always being stuck in that I cannot afford or I'm making, just enough or I have to
Yeah,
take
because
care of
then
them.
nobody moves forward, right? Everyone is
Yeah.
struggling, right?
Yeah.
Nobody gets the chance to fulfill their dreams. And so
Yeah.
you have a pattern genetically of people who are all limited,
Mm,
right? It's like in trying to help the people behind, they aren't able to move forward,
correct.
right? And
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
was really, really interesting, actually, something really interesting that happened with one of my clients is as she as she started to focus more on herself and her needs and what was important, she found a way to still support her family but also fulfill her own kind of
Mm,
personal goals. She was happier, she was lighter, her relationships with all the family members became better. So it's not just about the responsibility, but it's also about, how you feel in your life. And,
yeah.
when you're in the state of just, you're more at peace with yourself, you're happier, you're living your dream, or you're moving towards your dream, you're more likely to attract these amazing opportunities to yourself.
Yeah, and it's not like we're saying don't take care of your family and don't do any of these things. It's also very important to be very clear and be very in tune of where it's coming from, which goes back to if you love yourself and you love them, then you can also find that balance, like with what she did. She loved
Yeah.
herself enough to say, you know what, I'm important too.
Yeah, yeah. And she didn't neglect her
Yeah,
family. She just,
yeah,
it's true, she created better boundaries, and
mm,
she felt like she could express how much she
yeah,
could give, whereas before it was just like, it wasn't a conversation, it was
yeah.
more like, I have to, I must, and it felt heavy. So another very interesting thing is in theta healing, we talk about how our job is not to really parent our parents. We are the child,
Mm,
right? So
yeah.
we're always going to be the children of our parents. And yes,
Mm,
they're going to age and they're going to get older, and it is going to be our turn to take care of them, and we should want to do it from that place of love and gratitude and care, right? So the key to that is not mixing up the roles. You're always going to be the child of your parent. If you're the
mm,
parent of your parent, that is going to be a big burden on you. It's
yeah.
going to be difficult. So when the time does come that we need to take care of, not we need to, we want to take care of them better, we need to still do it from the perspective of a child and not because we are their parent.
Can you kind of give an example of the difference between the two?
Yes.
How, what is an example of coming in from the parent versus coming in from the child?
Yeah.
As,
I can kind of give you an example when it came to my my grandfather, my husband's grandfather.
mm,
So he was in his 90s when he passed, right? And he has a lot of people who love him very dearly. He's got, um, several kids and grandkids and, daughter-in-laws. He's got a whole big loving family around him. Now, some of us in the family wanted to parent him. You can't eat this. You can't eat
mm,
that. You must exercise. You must do this. And it was creating a lot of stress for the person who wanted to kind of control his behavior, because obviously he wouldn't listen. Like my grandfather, I'm just going to call him my grandfather because he feels as much my grandfather as my husband's, but he would have this like secret not secret, everybody knew where it was, but he would have this cabinet where all his favorite like sweets and
Stash.
like stash of food was. So no matter how much you tried to like control him, that's what he wanted. And when you're trying to be the parent, you're trying to control people. But when
Yes.
you are just recognizing that you're the child, you want them to be happy. You, of
Mm.
course, take care of them. You give them, you want to like, you know, make sure they're eating healthy and so on. But you're not trying to control them. There's a happy
Nag
balance
them.
between,
Control. Yeah.
loving them and allowing them to make their own choices
Mm.
while still supporting them
Yeah.
to be as healthy as possible, right? Or
Yeah.
support them in the way that you best can. So I think that's a great, easy example of parenting
Yeah.
a parent versus loving your parent as a child.
Mm.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
So that's, I mean, of course, it's going to apply very differently when you're looking at situations of, when we take on these roles of being the parent of our parents. For example, I know somebody, a client, who felt she could not date
Mm.
because she's responsible for her mom and her mom's a
Yeah.
single mom, right?
Right.
So again, you're parenting your mother
Mm.
because you won't date because you feel responsible that you can't date because she's single, because
Yeah.
if you have a partner it'll take you away from your mom, right?
Yeah.
So this is when the parenting and child role, the parent and child role gets a little confused, right? We
Mm-hmm.
need to, as children, the way we make, or the way we honor our parents is by living our best life. That's what
Mm.
I believe. Like the way we honor them, celebrate them, is all the opportunities they gave us, that we apply ourselves completely to that. We make progress
Yeah.
in our life. We impact the world in positive ways, but not at the expense of our relationship with them.
Yeah.
It is definitely important to be present with them and to stay
And
connected to
you
family.
know what's also something that I see often is also, you have siblings, and then let's say the parents pass away. Now the eldest sibling, the mother figure or that father figure, or the parental type energy for the others. I see that also quite often. And that's also looking back at, you're still a child. You're not expected to step up to be, the father or the mother. I see that also
And that
often
happens in
happening.
many, it's another great thing you brought up, because it happens in many situations, right? For example, if you're a single mom, if you're a
Mm,
child of a single mom and you're a boy, the tendency
yes.
is to step into the role of the husband or the father,
To be, yeah, father,
because
yeah.
that role is now empty. It's not occupied because you're the child of a single mom. So the boy tends to step into the role of the husband. But I've also seen the daughter of a single mom become like the partner of her mother.
The father, yeah. Yeah.
Like she's playing the role that the husband would for her mom. I've seen that happen
Mm,
too. And then it can happen the other way around as well. If you're living with your father and either your mother is, either separated, divorced, passed on, whatever the reason might be, and you're living with your father as a child, you will start becoming the mother of your father
the wife,
or
yeah.
the
Or
wife of
even the
your,
mother,
yeah, the
yeah,
mother. I've
yeah.
seen the mother. You step into the mother role to
Mm,
mother your father.
right,
Sometimes
right.
you become the wife and you take care of all the other children. So
Mm,
that child loses their childhood because they
yeah.
have to grow up and take the missing person in that dynamic, right? In that relationship has to take that
And
missing
there are
role
there
space.
are consequences. There are consequences to missing that aspect, of childhood that people don't realize. I think it's like they don't think that, oh, I actually don't know how to have fun, or I actually don't know how to relax, and I actually don't know how to do these things because I've never had a chance to do that,
So I think that's
And
exactly what happened to me,
mm,
right? Where as a
mm,
young child, I was kind of expected also to be a good role model and take care of my younger brother.
mm,
And we lived in Japan where, there was no help, right? So we were all
mm,
kind of, we had to learn to be
doing your
independent and
own,
do everything on
yeah,
our
yeah,
own. And
chores.
so
Mm,
I seem to have taken on a responsibility. And like in my family, I was always kind of like my daddy's little girl, but I was also the strong girl, right? Whereas my brother was kind of like the
Mm,
quieter, the one we took care of. He was younger. And my mom too was the one who like, she wasn't as strong-willed as me. She was more
mm,
softer. So what happened is, and I remember this incident specifically, is we had this earthquake in Japan, in Kobe, and it was a 7.2 on the Richter scale, so it was massive, 1995. And it was me and my dad who led everything. My mom couldn't
wow.
cope or handle
How old
the
were you
earthquake.
then?
Oh, gosh, 96, I would have been 20, no, I would have been 12. No, I
Wow.
would have been no, I would have been 15,
Mm,
around 15. Does that add up?
wow.
Or 14, something like that. I can't do the math right now. It's been a long day at work.
Okay, so you were a teen.
I was a teen, but I remember
Yeah.
that my dad was really focused on making sure my mom and my younger brother were safe because
Mhm.
me and my dad were most worried about them. Like we saw
Right.
ourselves as we are the stronger ones, we can handle it, but those two,
Mm,
we need to get them to safety. So that's
yeah.
exactly what we did. We went to a place in the building on the ground floor. Everyone from the building actually slept on the ground floor the whole night because we had 1,000 aftershocks. Me and my dad went up because we lived on the fifth floor, which is the top of the building, and we cleaned the whole house with the glass.
Wow.
My mom and my brother couldn't go up, but me and my dad were the ones who were like brave enough, and we had the strength and you know the courage, to go up there
So
after it was so bad.
what do you think that you feel like you missed out on or didn't get
Yeah,
or you
so
had to learn later
Yeah,
on?
so I first of all, I always remember feeling like I had to take on responsibility. I was the responsible one.
Mm,
And what ended up
mm,
happening is when I got married and had my own children, I didn't
mm,
know how to play with them. I
mm,
didn't
yeah.
know how to be like a child with them because I feel like I skipped quite a bit of my childhood. So I didn't know how to laugh and, play and just be like a child with a child. I was always like,
Yeah.
oh, but I need to order the diapers, I need to order this, I need to do that, I need to manage
Mm,
this. So my whole life was being responsible for the kids as
mm-hmm.
opposed to, spending that quality time just being silly and doing
Yeah.
like playful things and like, just hanging
Mm-hmm.
out. I didn't know how to do that because
Yeah.
I didn't know how to be like a child who had no care in the
Yeah.
world, right? I felt like I was always responsible. You know what I mean?
And so you learned how to do that again.
So I had to do some healing work on myself and
Yeah.
go back and heal the childhood that I feel like I didn't have. And it was nobody's fault. It was just, we moved to Japan when I was 4 years old, and it was a very different place, and my mom had no help,
Mm-hmm.
and my younger brother was
Yeah.
just born around that time. So I had to learn to fend for myself, and I had to
Mm.
learn to help. Like I remember when I was 8 years old, and this was something I was very proud to do. I would wake up in the morning and I would make tea for my parents, and I would
Oh,
I would
wow.
create a tray with the kettle with the tea that I would boil, and I had to boil it just right, and then I would set the mugs or the teacups, and the at that time I think my dad used to have equal sugar, so I would put it there,
Mm-hmm.
and like I would set it up, and I would bring the tray, and I was just a
Wow.
kid, but I was doing those kind of things, and I felt really good, like I felt really good about myself. So a lot of my self-worth was tied into
Mm,
taking responsibility and doing things like that. So I think
yeah.
we have to sometimes remember that every stage of life is important.
Mm,
In childhood we have to enjoy being a child,
yeah.
and using our imagination, playing
And
without,
kids nowadays want to skip all of that.
yeah.
The Sephora generation, the whole I want to get bigger and have my freedom. And it's really important to actually
Be a child.
experience. Yeah,
Yeah.
that.
Or like, I want a phone. I want that, like they're
Yeah,
already wanting to be part of this crazy hustle culture that we are all in,
yeah.
right? So they want to grow up too
God.
fast. But it's really important to fulfill every stage of life. And when we miss it, as we know in theta healing, we got to go back and complete it. And if we
Mm,
don't complete it, heal it, or resolve it, whatever is necessary, then we end up um, creating challenges for ourselves
yeah.
or acting out, or it affects our relationships, or we throw tantrums like a child even though we're adults because we haven't
Mm,
really healed that aspect of ourselves. But that's something we talk
yeah.
about in the inner circle class.
So
So all
this
right.
was really, really interesting. And I think we just touched the surface of things, no? There's so many deeper layers. Like I wanted to share about how being growing up and having, been told that you have to marry a certain kind or, being my own caste also created a lot of guilt and burden. So there's so many different layers to
Yeah.
this, and I think we can really explore
Yeah, we can
more.
pick that up in another conversation. But
Yeah.
today
Mm.
I'm doing virtue cards because you are not
Yes.
in Manila. And I
Yes.
had to actually go and find my virtue cards because I had put it away somewhere safe and then
You forgot where.
forgot where I put it. So I had to go hunting and found it again, which is
Welcome to
great.
the 40s.
Ah,
I said, welcome to the 40s.
welcome to your 40s. I know, right?
Hi.
We need to talk a little bit about that too.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Okay. So the card for today. Oh, we got a card we've had before.
Mm.
Should I pull something else?
Yeah, let's pull something else.
Okay. Okay. So I think we've also got this one before, but okay. So the cards I got were tolerance
Mm.
and discipline.
Oh, wow. Very
Tolerance and
interesting.
discipline. So yeah, very interesting. I mean, what is coming to you for tolerance and discipline?
I think in terms of our topic today, it's it's about, the discipline comes in with the boundaries and the self-love. So that's really very important virtue to have. And in terms of tolerance, there's also, I think I'd like to tie it in with boundaries to know how much you can, you know, and how much you need to keep for yourself in terms of love or money or financials.
Yeah.
There should, tie in both with boundaries.
Yeah. So what the book says, or what Vienna says, with great gifts should come great discipline.
Mm.
Allow the energy of discipline to influence your life with joy and enthusiasm, but not as a burden.
Wow, that was exactly it.
Yeah. Okay. And the other one was tolerance. Let me go take a look at how tolerance may show up in our conversation today. Okay. With tolerance comes the truth of understanding, for if you do not have true tolerance, the truth of life will hide from you. The ability to tolerate the world makes it so you can see it clearly without your heart breaking. Tolerance is being able to let things be as they are and still have the bravery to move forward.
Wow.
Okay. Very beautiful. So I think it's really about um, having tolerance for those around you,
Mm.
okay, and choosing to move forward
Yeah.
despite whatever is going on in other people's space or requirements. I think that's really important. And I think the discipline, you're right, with the boundaries and how we express how much we can give or how much we can take on in terms of responsibility that
Yeah.
somehow might really belong to others. Okay.
Very
And
nice.
she said something actually that I didn't read with the book, but it's I'm still kind of
Standing out, yeah.
thinking about it. Is in the virtue book, it said something about the divine perspective. So seeing the divine perspective in all things, right? So I think if I were to look at things from the divine perspective, is I think there's always space to love people and to help them, but still be committed to ourselves.
Yeah.
I think there's space for both. And there's
Mm.
a win-win where everybody kind of can prosper, everyone can be uplifted.
The moment we do that, that's when everything shifts, right? We just need, that's the key. We have to take that step forward.
Yeah.
And, if you want to explore taking that step forward, you can join me and explore a 20-minute emotional breakthrough where we can kind of talk a little bit about what we discussed today, anything that you're feeling, so that you can live your life fully without having gaps in any age as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Cool.
All right, it was good chatting with you today on Theta Talks. We'll see everyone
Next
next
week.
Tuesday. Yep, same time, same place on Instagram. And of course, if you missed anything, you can catch it on our Third Eye Wellness channel feed. And yeah, I'll see you guys soon. Lots of love.
See you.
Bye.